Welcome back to the CrazyBone podcast. Join again with my co-host Leo Martinez, and we are at my ranch, my dad's ranch, whatever you want to call it, JH Ranch. We'll say that.
In
Uvalde, Texas, home of CrazyBone hunting, and home of CrazyBone whitetails. We're doing things a little different, as you can see. We're out in the pasture, and behind us is a feed pen set up. We've got a big protein feeder, cottonseed, and corn, and then it's closed in with a 40 by 60 feet pin. And it's what, 3 feet tall, something like that?
Yeah, about 3 foot.
So a lot of times when I post pictures on CrazyBone, people see the feed pen and they see deer in it. You got them caged up, And I'm thinking, you're an idiot. They're not caged up. They're in there so the cows can't get to the feed. The pigs can't get to the feed. That stuff's not cheap.
Right.
I can't have every Tom, Dick, and Harry in town eating on that feed.
Mm-hmm.
I want those deer eating it.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And so we figured we'd come to you today and talk a little bit about feed, how we feed, why we feed, what we feed, so on and so forth. The closest feeder to us, the light green, is my protein. It's a Record Rack Antlers Plus, 20% protein for the pasture. And then the next deal is the cottonseed, just regular old cottonseed, none of that fancy crap because that's pointless in my eyes. And then corn. Again, corn is not very beneficial.
It's an attractant.
It's just a snack. It did work well though for the freeze.
Mm-hmm.
I think it helped them burn a lot of stuff and get their metabolism.
It's got a lot of
going.
carbs in it, a lot of carbohydrates.
So the cottonseed, somebody had asked us about some fancy cottonseed.
This morning, as we were
we won't
filling feeders,
we won't say what the name or whatever it is, but
we were filling feeders. You put a video up of because there was a shed right outside the pen.
Yeah.
And so you videoed, the shed, and they saw the cottonseed, and they asked, is that
XYZ
cottonseed? And the answer is no. It's just cottonseed from a gin.
Right. I don't see the need in spending extra money for extra stuff in cottonseed because I have a supplemental feed. I'm feeding protein, and they're going to eat both. And from that protein, they're going to get all their micro, macro nutrients,
minerals, vitamins,
trace minerals, all that stuff. And then they're going to come right over here, and they're going to nibble on this grass.
Yep.
And they're going to, maybe not for a while, but when this comes back to life, they're going to start picking at these buds, and they're going to eat all that stuff. They're going to get all that good stuff they need.
Mm-hmm.
That cottonseed is loaded with protein, loaded with fat, loaded with fiber. Those are the 3 things I need those deer to eat right now.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're going to eat everything else around here, lick on the dirt, eat protein, and then they'll get everything else that they need.
Mm-hmm.
And
especially as we go into spring. I mean, we're getting into spring. Of course, the freeze affected that, but it'll come back. I was showing you I was breaking branches on trees as we were walking around, and it had green in it, and
that's got green in it.
Got green
right there.
in it. So
it looks dead. It's not.
But it's not. It's just
it
got knocked back with the ice.
It did.
So we were, as we were walking around looking for sheds earlier, me and Madison, I broke open a Wyacon. It was a real pretty Wyacon bush. The leaves were gone. I shook it and the leaves actually fell off.
Oh, great.
But I broke it and it was green on the inside.
Good.
And I told her, I said, this is Wyacon. I said, this is double dip bluebell ice cream, for deer. Yeah, that's good stuff.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of it. You've got really good brush diversity, and it just, the leaves got froze off, but it's still green on the inside.
And I'm sure everybody can see in the video. I mean, the trees and the brush just look like total trash right now.
Yeah.
But
they'll come back.
We're not the only one in that situation.
South Texas always comes back.
Yeah.
She can be mean, but boy, when she comes back,
it's a beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm. That's a great thing.
Yeah.
One of the things that I wanted to touch on, when we were talking about this a little while ago about doing this and talking about the feed and you mentioned you feed the Record Rack and I feed Record Rack feed, and I like it, and there's a lot of feed out there and it's personal preference.
Yeah.
But one of the things that you'll notice, and I get asked a lot, one of the biggest questions, I guess, is, do you feed your protein with your corn feeder? Do you hunt over your protein? Absolutely. I do.
Yep.
I mean, I don't have a problem having protein feeder in the same station as a corn feeder. Right now on our ranch, we don't have to, but they're close. I mean, they're within sight of each other.
Right.
You know, and they're two separate. I keep a pin around the protein feeder and the cottonseed. We have protein and cottonseed, and we have our corn feeders on the outside because we do hunt pigs.
Right.
You know, and a lot of people don't want them, and so they put a pin around it. Not a big deal to the ranch, so we didn't do it. But a lot of people say, well, you don't want to hunt your deer over your protein because you're going to scare them off. No, I don't agree with that. I think they'll come back, and the minute that deer is taking over protein at a protein feeder, I don't have a problem shooting deer at a protein feeder.
Mm-mm.
I mean, they're within sight. They're not right next to our corn, but they're within sight of each other. So we are hunting our protein just as much as our corn. Because what we've noticed, even having them separate, they'll come in, feeder will spin, the deer will come in, they'll eat, and then when they're done, they walk over to the protein. And they start eating protein, or vice versa. They're going to come in early, eat some protein, feeder's going to spin, then they're going to get some corn, take a bite or two of cottonseed, and then they're gone. But I've never noticed anything where, oh, you're pressuring your protein, and you don't want to do that because you want them to eat it. Oh, they're going to eat it. They're going to eat it. So I don't have any issue with hunting over protein.
And do you feed protein 24/7, 365?
24/7, 365. We don't stop. We feed it through hunting season. We feed it through, we don't stop. And that's another thing. I have a lot of people say, well, we stop during the winter because the deer are going to go to the protein and instead of the corn, and they're going to come in at night and they're going to feed. And because I've got pictures of them on the cameras. Mm-hmm. But we just hunt a little harder. Not harder, not that anybody hunts any less, but they're just, I just feel like, when do you stop and why?
I stop in the winter. 2 reasons, and I'm embarrassed to even say one of them, but the main thing is the money.
Sure.
And that's the embarrassing part,
right.
To be honest.
Right.
The protein's not cheap. But, so we cut it off, and I try not to cut it off very long. I mean, like, I'll wait till late October.
Sure.
And I'm going to run out kind of towards the end of October so that November, December, they're empty.
Right.
Those are my 2 main hunting months, November, December.
Right.
And then January, I'm filling them back.
You're filling them back up.
I'm not out much, and I'm doing that for what you just said. I've got all my pictures and videos from this station here. The deer coming in at 2 o'clock in the morning to eat the protein. And as a commercial hunting operation,
sure.
it makes life a lot more difficult.
Sure.
So we pull them off those 2 months to cycle them on the corn, and of course we corn the roads, and we we put out more corn than you can imagine.
Right. As most people do during hunting season.
Right.
That's why every convenience store in every town in South Texas sells corn.
Right.
Because everybody puts out corn, and
But it's gone through the roof on price.
It has, and everything has. The feed is going up. Protein is going to be real expensive. It's already going up.
Yeah.
In prices. Your commodities go up, and they're going to follow.
I remember when I was a kid, Dad and I were on a deer lease, and we didn't figure corn by the bag.
Yeah.
You always figured it by the 100. Mm-hmm. 2 bags.
Right.
And it was like, well, how much is corn? Oh, feeder's going off.
Feeder's spinning.
Speak of the devil.
Speaking of.
Well, we might have some deer show up. I don't know.
Yep.
We would go in, and it would be like, well, how much is corn? Well, $3 a 100. And we're like, ooh. Back in the day, we're like, oh man, I don't know.
Yeah.
Now I give you my right leg.
For $1.50 a bag.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh.
It's probably what, $7.50 right now.
I think. Yeah, I was at gas station the other day. And like you said, every gas station in South Texas has feed.
Yeah.
So I want to say that was $7.
Yeah.
We saw one. It may have even been a 40-pound bag.
We saw one the other day that was $9 I believe, Madison.
Good.
Yeah, it was $9 a bag at a convenience store. We weren't buying it. We just pulled in to get something to drink and soda water, and I was like, oh my gosh! And they had a sign out front. It was right at the end of hunting season. They don't have it right now. Most of them just have it during the hunting season.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was $9 at the end of hunting season. It was $9 a bag.
It's ridiculous.
And it's, you know, I guess I've done it because you forget you're going somewhere and you need a bag or two. But I'm not going to buy a pallet at $9 a bag, but I'll pick up a couple and go, okay, I'll do it. But
we've been pretty fortunate. We have found a good deal on corn. Dad has a guy that lives not far from him that grows corn, and we get it straight from him, and it's like straight out of the combine.
Right.
I mean, we take these big barrels. They hold about 400 pounds a piece, and he just
fills them all up.
Yeah, and we'll bring
the trailer down and unload
15,
them
20
in
of
the
them
barn.
up here, and that'll last us a couple months.
Yep.
And go get more.
Good to go. Yep.
Yeah.
No, but we do, and I run my corn feeders year round.
Yeah.
I turn them down. You know, of course we hunt exotics,
Right.
so we're hunting them during the spring, and you know, not so much the summer because it's hot. Nobody wants to, you know, not that we wouldn't. It's just hard to get somebody to sit, you know, when it's hot.
Oh,
it's just horrible.
Miserable.
But then, you know, in the middle of summer, but we're getting ready to do some axis hunts and, you know, turkeys and stuff like that. So we keep our feeders running. We turn them down a little bit, you know, from what we normally run them. But we've got it kind of figured out. And we don't do it on purpose, but I mean, I think we ran almost through the whole season, you know, on the fill up. Of course, our feeders are big.
How big are your corn feeders?
How big? 1,000 pounders.
Okay, that's what mine.
Yeah, we run 1,000 pounders, and you know, and by big I mean they're not the 300, you know.
Right.
Because
the old school barrel.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Where we'd have to be filling them up, you know.
Isn't that crazy how that's evolved too?
Oh yeah, the feeder business is.
I mean, 20 years ago or so, you used a barrel, or you didn't have a deer feeder.
We talked about this the other day. I was telling Madison we were running around and I was putting some corn out, and I told her, I said, man, this is a flipping a button, you know, which I've got wired into my truck. So
same with my race.
Yeah, just like yours. It's just a toggle switch, and I don't want the cord coming in the back window or the side window or whatever, you know, with the switch. And they give it to you when you buy a tailgate feeder or a you know, road feeder.
Yeah.
And I asked her, I said, you know why they're called tailgate feeders? I said, because they used to hang on the tailgate. It had the hooks on the back. I said, we'd cut old pieces of carpet and lay it over the back and then put it.
Much.
Well, what would happen, it would bounce over, and before you knew it, it was on the passenger side, and you'd bring it back and you'd have scratches all the way down your tailgate, but we didn't have a choice. And I told her we were hunting a place, you know, of course we hunted all around Freer, but we had one lease. The first tailgate feeders we got, we had them on Jeeps, and we had ropes.
To activate them.
To make them go. It had a plate with a spring on it, and we'd put the rope, you know, to the front and have a little handle, look like a ski rope.
Yeah.
You know, and we'd have it sitting there. So you'd pull it, and the plate would open, and it put the corn out, and it had the spring on the other side. When you let it go, it would close it.
Yep.
And so we would drive around running our corn line, you know, pulling that rope. And she was like, what? And I said, yeah, it had a rope on it. She's like, what are you talking about? And I said, that's how we ran corn.
I had one that we rigged up, because back in the day, you rigged up all your own crap.
Yeah, yep.
And well, I mean, we still do it.
Sure.
All of our 1,000-pound protein
Sure.
corn feeders, we built those. But anyways, so we had a tailgate feeder.
Right.
And it was one of those little mini drums. I don't even know.
35 gallon.
Yeah, something.
They're 35 gallon. That's what we would use. We would use around 35 gallon drums, and we would put braces, well braces.
And then we found an old butterfly valve, like off of something. You know, my dad owned a machine shop for years, so it was probably a prototype or something we did for somebody or something that was messed up. Who knows? So we're like, oh, this will work. And we had a butterfly valve, and we put all that in, and you know, made it had an arm on it, and we had in the truck, you're driving.
And pulling on that thing and hoping that spring wasn't super tight.
And then again, underneath it was a rod, and then a piece of metal bent like this that would just float as we're driving. And the corn would hit that and just
spread it out.
Spread it out.
We took, it was funny because one of the ones we had, we took an old license plate, and stuck it down like a chute, but we wanted it to hear. You wanted a deer to hear it.
Absolutely.
And it was clanging as it was falling, and then that would make it go out and hit the ground and spread out. But
nice.
yeah, we had to. You'd have to pull it by hand and
Yep.
get it going like that. But yeah, it's evolved quite a bit. But we do run it. We do run our corn year round, and we do feed our protein.
I want to
year-round.
back up just a hair. You do something that I don't do, but I want to start doing.
Mm-hmm.
You have designated turkey and
Yes.
quail feeders.
Yes.
Can you talk about that? Why you did it? What it's done for you? What you put in it? Yada yada yada.
Well, we've got a lot of turkeys, and we had some turkeys. Let me put it that way. We had some turkeys, and it was something that I wanted to develop, and it gets back to habitat. What do we need to do to grow turkeys?
Mm-hmm.
And everything is intertwined. When you do something for deer, it's going to have an effect on the quail and the turkeys
Mm-hmm.
and the dove and normally, habitat is habitat. And they say, well, it's deer habitat. Well, yeah, but it also affects the other animals. Whether it's opening up a field, like this in front of this, you can't see it, but in front of this food station, you've got a food plot.
Yeah.
So you're going to affect what animals are going to come in. When you plant that food plot, yeah, the deer are going to come in, but you're going to have some cover. And if you plant milo, you're going to have some quail. You're going to have some dove.
Yep.
And you can strip. You can disc it all, and you can say, well, the outside we're going to do milo because we want some tall cover, and then in the middle we're going to put down whatever. You pick. We're going to put turnips for the deer. Well, they're going to walk through the milo to get to the turnips, but your quail and your dove are going to benefit from the milo on the outside of the strip. Of the strip on the outside of the food plot, rather.
Right.
So, and there's different ways that you can do your food plots, but I wanted more turkeys. I wanted to, because again, we hunt, and I thought, well, it's something that we can develop and get more turkeys so we can do a few hunts.
And a lot of people like shooting turkeys.
They love
That's
it.
one of my favorite animals to hunt.
Love turkey hunting, calling turkeys. It's like rattling in a big deer.
Oh yeah.
The guys that love to call turkeys are passionate about turkey hunting
Mm-hmm.
for that reason, for the calling. Texas has a season in the fall, and most hunters are like,
Oh, I'll smoke a turkey in the
well,
fall.
most guys, they'll go like, because we're deer hunting.
Yeah.
But they want to come back in the spring and call them.
Yeah.
Because it's fun. It's fun to watch them come in and try to
Absolutely.
trick them to
You're
come
fooling
into
that
you.
Yes, yes.
So one of our deals was, okay, what do I have to do? And we have the trees that allows them to roost.
Mm-hmm.
So we had the roosting. Of course we had the water. We're fortunate to have water. And that's a big thing, with the turkeys is roosting and water. And one of the things I wanted to do was supplemental feed them to get them to come in, stay, and be healthy when they're nesting. They're at the bottom of the food chain. I mean, there's just nothing there that, everything eats their eggs. You've got.
And they're not terribly smart.
No, and they nest on the ground. So you've got raccoons, you've got snakes, you've got hogs, you've got everything in the world trying to kill them.
Bobcats, coyotes.
Yeah, before they're born, they're trying to kill them. So we left some areas where I wasn't mowing, and let some cover come up, and at certain times,
Right.
when they're doing that. So and going into hunting season, we try to mow everything and make it look nice because we got people coming in. But in the spring and summer and fall, I would leave it, trying to get some nesting cover. So one of my things was, okay, well, let me feed them, and they come into, as I'm sure if you've got turkeys, they're going to come to the corn.
Yeah.
They're going to come eat corn. So I thought, let me find their roosting area, and I'm going to put some feed near their roosting area, so when they come down off the roost, they've got feed. And actually, some of them, the way they worked out, the way they laid out, we actually laid it in between the roosting, the open area. They like little open area, so the fields. So we tried to put it in between the roosting and the water.
Mm-hmm.
So as they're traveling, because they're going to go to water.
Yes.
So in between that is where we try to set our stations, feed stations. And we just bought the, regular commercial, turkey feeders that have the legs that sit up off the ground.
And it's just got little holes.
It's got holes in it, and it's got the holes in, and they stick their head in there, and you think they're not going to work, but we've driven up or watched them or sat back and watched them. And,
I've seen them there.
And man, they're all around it.
Yeah.
They're like deer at this feeder. They're going to sit around, and then they'll move off, and another set will walk in, and they all take turns eating. So
do you go through a lot of feed having it set up like that?
At certain times we do. Milo, we put a lot of Milo in. We'll mix a little bit of corn in it, but mostly it's
cracked corn or whole corn.
We'll just do whole corn, and because they're eating it at the feeder, they used to eat them at the feeder.
Yeah.
So, but it's about 95% Milo that we'll put out, and like hen scratch. It's not hen scratch, but it's like hen scratch.
Yeah.
And man, they'll just go to it, and it'll get beat down like a feeder, like a corn feeder. I mean, they'll have it beat down where they're in there eating it. And so there's certain areas where we see it, where we set them up. And actually we were just talking the other day. I keep pointing Madison standing behind the camera, but she actually came up and said, hey, I found a area where these turkeys are roosting. And she said, and we don't have a feeder. We need to get another couple of feeders. So, again, yeah, it costs money because you got to go buy the feeder. And then you've got to, fill it.
And maintain
it. And we've had them every now and then. The pigs will knock it over and, try to get to the feed and get mad because they can't. But we stake them down. We get the big stakes and put them in the ground. And so, yeah, that's why we do them when we do. I was just trying to catch them in between. And I'm not a turkey expert by any means. And I'm sure there's some out there that'll say, oh, no, you need to put it here. We just did what we thought, okay, they're going from here to here, and it works. Yeah, it's working.
Well, it ain't broke.
So no, we're not. It ain't broken, so we're not trying to fix it. But we do put a lot of feed out for the turkeys.
Now, do you notice other birds like
absolutely
all the songbirds and
absolutely
quail and stuff? Do they get in those little holes? And
they'll because it's got that funnel and it'll not supposed to spill, but they'll spill some out. But the birds will get in it. We drove by one the other day and a squirrel come running out of it. I mean, a tree squirrel. A squirrel come running out and up an oak tree. And. Or up a mesquite tree, and so yeah, everything out there that can get in there is going to eat it, But yeah, you'll get songbirds they'll sit on that lip and reach in there and eat it and then fly off. So, which is cool. I mean, I like the songbird. I like the birds. I like to look at them. And anybody that's out here, most people that do this and are out, filling feeders or around the ranch or doing whatever. They're not going to admit to it. No. Those guys are going to say, "Oh no, I don't watch birds."
We're too tough to like birds.
Yeah, but they do.
The heck with them birds. I don't need them.
Yeah, but they do. Because I've had guys with me and stop and go, "Is that a green jay?" Green jays are beautiful birds.
Yeah, I call them green blue jays.
Yeah. Those guys.
There's a lot of them out here.
Yeah, there is, and especially during the winter because they're migrating, and so you get them come in, during the hunting season. But yeah, I love looking at birds.
It's funny when the green jays are here. Most hunters. They don't know what they are.
Yeah.
Because, long ago I didn't know what they were. I remember the first time I saw one, I'm like, what in the hell? Is that a parrot?
Yeah.
I'm like, why is there a parrot in South Texas?
Big, tall, beautiful birds. So,
they are?
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, I'll be honest with you, and I'll, give him a shout out on the birds, Dan Verips.
Woo.
Dan is amazing with birds.
I can't tell you how many times I've taken pictures of birds in the blind
and
send them to Dan. Dan, what is this? He comes back with like some name this long. I'm like, so what do I call it?
Yeah.
Chi-Chi bird.
Yeah. I took one at here just not too long ago, and I took it with my phone. It wasn't a very good picture. I didn't have my camera with me, and actually it was in the yard. I'd walked out of my house, and I walked around in the yard to get something, and there was a bird on the fence, and I stopped, and I took a picture of it, and I texted it to him, and I said, what is this? And I want to say it was like an oriole.
Yeah.
It was red and black, but wasn't orange. But it was red and black and
different type of oriole.
Yeah, and he texted me right back and he said, yeah, it's an oriole. They come in this time of year, and so he's kind of being able to hang out with Dan, which I love doing when he's out taking pictures, on the ranch, or doing whatever he's doing. He's really into the birds. I mean, big, and it's kind of bled over to where I'm like more conscious of the birds where I'm looking at them. But yeah,
unfortunately, he's done that to me too.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dang it, Dan, I ain't watching birds. I'm trying to look for deer.
Yeah, and you end up doing it. You're looking, and then all of a sudden, what kind of bird is that?
Yeah.
So But yeah, so no, they benefit. They do. So because
He says there's actually good money in the off season of deer hunting.
Absolutely.
To bring in bird watchers to your ranch.
Yep.
I'm like, you've got to be kidding me.
No, and we're heading towards that way.
Yeah.
You know, on our ranch, we're and I know I've mentioned it in one of the previous podcasts where we're the plants that we're putting out, the plants that we're putting down. You know, we're looking at, okay, what does this attract?
Yeah.
You know, there's some native stuff that instead of just, let's just go buy rose bushes, you know, well, let's get some plants that have some color that attract birds or butterflies or, you know, there's all kinds of hummingbirds, you know. Oh yeah, hummingbirds are cool.
They are cool.
And there's certain flowers that attract hummingbirds.
Right.
So yeah, we try to, we're heading in that direction to where we can say, okay, well, hopefully we can get some people in that, you know, in the off season that are going to stay at the lodge and bird watch.
That'd be cool.
Yep. No, it'd be really cool.
Well, we're getting off track. Let's back up to the feed thing again. You know a lot more about feed than I do. I just know I need to give it to them. And I know some basic things in there, you know, the calcium, phosphorus, yada, yada, yada. What kind of ratios or what kind of numbers should people be looking for? And are there feeds with certain things in them or certain things that aren't in maybe some feeds that people might need to steer away from? Because I know there's like exotic, like if a feed bag is labeled exotics for, you and I would say axis deer or something like that.
Right.
Typically those have less copper in them.
Right. Because
sheep and goats
Right.
are going to be eating them.
Right.
And a lot of people probably don't even know that sheep and goats, too much copper will kill them.
It'll kill them. Yeah.
Copper toxicity.
Right.
And are there things like that for deer? I mean, I've never heard of any kind of toxicity in deer.
No, not necessarily.
Unless it's alpha toxins. But
and they do it on purpose, you know, because they don't want to harm your herd.
Yeah.
You know, the last thing they want to do is have somebody call them and say, hey, I put this feed out and now I've got dead deer. You know, and they're just like, no, we don't want that.
Yeah.
So they're gonna, you know, every reputable feed company, and there's a lot of them, feed companies out there. There's a lot of different feeds. And I'm not, you know, we don't get paid by anybody. You know, we do this because we enjoy doing it. You know, we don't have a company that we go, oh no, you've got to feed this. This is this. You know, we just mentioned Record Rack because that's what I feed. That's what you feed. And it just so happens that that's what we feed.
Right.
But
I've fed other brands out here, and for my deer,
Right.
for my situation and all that stuff, the price point of the Record Rack
sure,
fits.
availability.
And availability fits.
Yep.
And then I've noticed better results for my deer.
There you go. So that's
So
that's
now
why
I'm
you
at a
feed it.
point where now I'm like, well, it's not broke.
Yeah.
I ain't fixing it.
Why change it?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, there's a lot of different companies, but if they're reputable companies, they have done tests on their feed.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean, we put it out and they ate it.
No.
I mean, tests on what it's doing to this deer, what it does to the rumen, you know, what it does to, you know, as far as the like you said, the minerals, the macros, you know, there's just so much that goes into this. And because there's so many, I'm not going to name, you know, this brand this, but I'll give you an example. You know, even though I feed Record Rack, they have a testing area.
Yeah.
You know, and literally it's pens where they study these animals. Purina does it. Purina has, you know, a place where they study what they do, you know, what they feed and what it does. And you know,
yeah, they're putting feed. They're giving them feed, and then they're checking the poop to see
absolutely. They're doing
digestibility,
fecal samples,
yeah.
and they're doing, you know, all this stuff, and to make sure. And that's the only thing I would say is make sure it's a reputable company who has tested their feed, and say, you know,
and that have actual scientists working for
that
them?
have that have nutritionists is the word.
Okay, we'll go with that.
They'll have nutritionists working for them that are actual nutritionists. This is what they do.
Right.
You know, they study nutrition on animals, and it bleeds over because, you know, they have cow feed,
Yeah.
you know, and they do cows and they do this and they do that. So they're all not only studying deer, what does it do for, you know, this feed do for cows? They actually have ranches or farms that they do all these studies on. And that would be my only thing, is make sure it's a reputable company that does studies on their feed and not, oh yeah, well we put it out and they're going to eat it. Well, yeah, they're going to eat it, but is it good? What's it do? Does, a 20% with 4% fat, or a 20% with 6% fat? Is it just a 20% with 2% fat? And what are the carbohydrates in it? What are the, the reason there's a tag on it.
Yes.
There's a reason there's a tag.
Right. A lot of people don't know how to read that tag. And that's understandable.
Sure. Because, you fill your feeder and you go home, and let the deer eat it. They've done that. They have studied everything that this deer is going to eat. And so you're going to get it. You might get less fat in it, which is one of the things, our feed.
Usually your cheaper feeds will have less fat.
Less fat in it.
Which is why another reason I supplement with cotton.
Sure. So, we feed a 20% with 4% fat in the pasture, and I supplement with cottonseed, because it's high in protein and high in fat, but it doesn't have any of the minerals in it.
Right.
And
which I don't think they need.
No.
Not out of the cottonseed.
No, not out of the cottonseed. I agree. That's just my opinion.
Right.
I'm sure we could sit here with an expert on that, and he's going to say no, and this is why. Well, okay. Well, I don't think so, because I can, I can pick up the phone, and you can too, and anybody can, and go to the feed store and say, okay, well, this is what I need, and say, I've got some questions. And if they can't answer that question, and they're selling a feed that's again, I want to use the word reputable, but comes from an established feed company, they're going to get their nutritionist on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've talked with Purina, in the past, and they had and you know him, I mean, you know who he is. They put me on the phone with Dr. Varner, and he was like, I was, I was like, you don't know what to say. It's Dr. Varner. He was one of the people from other feed companies go, oh my gosh, that's Dr. Varner. I've heard him. I've heard him go, I've been at conferences. I've been at, and I mean, the guy was the man, and I said, hey, I got a question. The guy said, well, I don't know if I can answer that, but let me get you somebody who can. And I said, sure, call me back. I said, and I answered the phone, and he said, hey, Leo, how you doing? This is Dr. Varner with Purina Feeds. And I was like, well, it was kind of a dumb question. I didn't have to get Dr. Varner on the phone, but they were serious about what they were doing.
Right.
They were serious about their feed. They're serious about their answers, and they want to answer that question correctly.
That's good.
And the guy was like, well, maybe I can't answer this. Let me get the guy who can. And so this is a guy who developed the feed. And you're like, oh, man, we didn't have to go to this trouble.
Yeah.
But I was honored to talk to him.
Sure.
Because like I said, I've talked to the guys with Record Rack, the feed store next to the salesman, to their nutritionist.
Yeah.
I've talked to Bobby Dietz.
Right.
And Bobby's their nutritionist. And
he's a damn good one too.
And I asked a question one day. Bobby's great. I asked Bobby a question one day, and he was like, let me find out. Well, we got on a conference call with a nutritionist at their
main plan.
And I was like, okay, well, this they're serious about it.
Yeah.
Bobby's like, I want to make sure I answer correctly.
Absolutely.
And so we were on a conference call with the feed salesman, Bobby, and Bobby's nutritionist that he goes to at their main plant and their proving grounds.
Yeah.
Their farm. And I'll tell you what the question was. We had deer pens, we had mesquite trees, and at certain times of the year, the trees put out beans. They drop the beans in the pens. The deer are going to eat them because that's what they do. My question was, does that affect how they eat the protein out of the feeder? Do we need to go in and rake up these mesquite beans to where it's not going to affect what they're eating out of the,
I would think that the mesquite beans would be beneficial.
Their answer was, it's not going to affect it. You're fine. You're okay. But I didn't, me being me, just being anal about, is that going to make them stop eating? Is the mesquite beans okay for them?
Right.
But is that going to fill them up to where they're not getting, because this is a pen setting.
Mm-hmm.
They're not getting what they're going to get out of this pellet that has everything in it. So is that going to slow down the consumption of the pellet, which I don't want that.
Right.
because a pellet is 100% got everything they need in it.
Optimized,
It's a maximum amount of everything they need in that pellet. So me sitting there and watching a deer walk over and eat a mesquite bean, which I know they eat it, and it's no different than someone in East Texas having an oak tree and it dropping the mast on the ground and it's eating the mast while it's got a feeder in the pen. So I saw him eating a mesquite bean and I was like, So I called the feed guy and he's like, great question. He calls Bobby, but he was very upfront. He's like, man, I don't know. Let me find out. He said, don't hang up. So he gets Bobby on the phone and Bobby goes, man, that's a great question. I don't think it will, but let me find out. Well, he calls one other guy and all of a sudden we've got a conference call going because some guy,
some hillbilly wants to know
some
about
redneck in South
beans.
Texas wants to know if these deer eating mesquite beans is going to affect what they eat out of and they loved it. They were like, man, this is great. We love these questions.
Yeah.
Because that means you're paying attention. That means you're watching. And they want that. They want you to, they want that input. And again, because this is what they do.
Yeah.
It's not, Joe Blow down the road going, well, let me crush this in here and we'll put it together and it's going to work.
See what happens.
See what happens. So, yeah, that would be my answer. Go with someone, whatever company it is. We don't push feed, but whoever company you go with, make sure that they can answer those questions when you have them and get you the right feed.
Yeah.
So
now, something that I don't feed much in the pasture, it's more of a feed I give my deer in the pens, simply because I could just, economically, it doesn't make sense for me. And I would feed it in the pasture, but chaff hay.
Right.
So the chaff hay, a lot of people may not know, but it's in the field, they're growing alfalfa.
Sure.
And their machines are specially built for this. They go in, it's harvesting the alfalfa, it's chopping it up real fine, and then per 50 pounds, they're spraying 2 tablespoons of molasses.
Right.
And then putting it in basically a sealed bag.
Sure.
And there's just enough oxygen in there, just enough sugar in there, just enough moisture in there where that stuff basically starts to ferment. It's starting to break down. And it's actually creating probiotics,
Sure.
prebiotics. There's yeast in there. People think it's mold.
Right.
They open the bag, it's moldy.
It's got mold in it.
And I'm like, you are a fool.
I've seen it. Yep.
It looks like mold. It's not mold. That's the best thing those deer can eat. Now, most of the time they'll pick around it, but eventually they'll eat it.
Sure.
And when they do, that yeast is money.
We don't feed it in the pasture. Economically, it's very hard to do.
It is.
Even with alfalfa, it's just hard to do.
It is very hard.
Because it's expensive.
It is.
And so we're like, now certain times of the year, like this last cold front, we were putting out peanut hay.
Yeah.
And so we were going around to our feed stations and just literally dumping a bale in, cutting the strings, spreading it out a little bit and driving off. And at the end of the 4 days, they were waiting on it. They would hear the truck coming because it was, I think, they had that going on in their body where they're like, okay, we're getting something else.
And peanut hay is great. It is. It's a lot more economical.
It is a little more economical.
It is hard to find in square bales.
It is. And we're fortunate we had some that we used in our deer pens.
Yeah.
So we were dumping it out in the pasture in a feed station.
Yeah.
Not because we do have cattle, but we were feeding our cows cottonseed. I mean, we were taking totes and literally running a line of, I was taking a knife and cutting the bottom of the tote on the tractor and just driving, and it was running right between the tires. And I was running lines of cottonseed for the cows because we had to do something, so
Yeah.
Trying to get an extra is what it was. We had round bales, of coastal, but I thought it's not going to hurt.
No.
And at that time when it's, in the 20s,
a lot
it's
more energy
ice
in that cottonseed.
and so the energy level's higher, the fat content is higher, and so we were feeding cottonseed. But yeah, we went out and put some hay out in our feed stations for our whitetails just to help them. And we stopped once it got back to normal. We were like, okay, well they're good.
They're over it,
yeah, they're okay. So, but yeah, we did a little bit of that.
That's a weird sounding bird.
Speaking of birds.
Yeah. I like to, and then some people are going to think I'm crazy, but I love to cut mistletoe out of the mesquites.
Yep.
For the deer.
Really?
Dude, they eat the snot out of it. And literally, I've used it for an attractant for deer, and it freaking works.
Really?
And you hear, oh, mistletoe's poisonous,
Toxic,
it's poisonous,
yeah.
it's toxic, it's
Yeah.
this, you can't feed it to animals, you don't even touch it, whatever, you know. Well, I've come to learn that it is toxic for cattle,
Yeah.
not deer.
Not deer. Yeah.
Which strikes me as odd because they're both ruminant animals. And I'm like, their guts are essentially the same.
Same but different.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're, you know, a few things are tweaked here and there, and obviously the size is
Right.
different, but the deer will eat it, loves it,
Yeah.
and can do well on it.
Yeah.
Cow,
Can't do it.
I'm out.
That's funny you mentioned that. I never thought about that.
Yeah.
We would cut it off of our ornamental mesquites
Yeah.
in the yard because it grows, the branches grow funky and
Yep.
you know, and then they'll die and break. So we would go through and cut the mistletoe off of the mesquites that we had around the lodges and stuff like that.
If you
So
do that, put it in front of one of your trail cameras.
I'm gonna do that.
I did. I had a buck. And
Real
I'm like, man,
interesting.
there's this buck, and he's in this area, and he was coming to water, but I didn't know where
Right.
on the water he'd be, and I wanted to
Right.
get close-up pictures. So I put my camera right there. Found a bunch of mistletoe, piled it up right there. I said, well,
See what happens.
That night, he stood right there and ate every piece of that mistletoe,
Wow.
and I got probably 100 pictures of him, from me to you.
Very interesting.
Yeah. And
I'm
the
gonna have to try it.
cows came by. They
Didn't
came to
touch
get
it?
water, and they were like, woo, I'm out.
Yep. I'm gonna have to try it. I'm gonna
Yeah.
try it.
And
Real
we've
interesting.
noticed, like Dad and I have noticed, that we have never seen mistletoe
where they can reach it.
where low enough
Yeah,
where they can reach
yeah,
it.
because they'll eat it. Yeah,
Because they'll just,
yeah,
and we'll, you know, at the house, we've got that big window
Sure.
we can see out. If we're trimming trees around the house, boy, we'll rip some mistletoe out and just throw it right there.
Watch the deer.
And I can have corn, chaff hay, mistletoe, the whole buffet out there. And they'll step over all that stuff, eat the mistletoe,
And then go to the rest.
and then go eating the rest of it.
Wow, I'm gonna have to try it. Learn something
cool.
new every day.
Yeah. And you know, I want to say, and I feel like a jerk saying this, but a lot of people don't realize how important gut health is
Absolutely,
for an animal.
absolutely, 100%.
I mean, it's probably the most critical thing for these animals.
Mm-hmm.
If their gut is not healthy, they're not healthy.
That's right.
And they're not going to reach their potential. Their antlers aren't going to grow.
Yep.
Their pregnancies, just everything. The fawns, they're just going to be. It's just a downhill battle or an uphill battle.
Yep.
And by gut health, you and I both know what we're talking about. But the rumen, I have a hard time explaining a rumen. You know, people say, oh, they got 4 stomachs. Kind of.
Yeah.
You know, the rumen is actually the big part. And all the microbes and the bacterias and the
Literally bugs.
bugs
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you want the bugs in there, you
Yeah.
know, you want the good bugs,
Yep.
but you want
Yep.
and you need to feed those bugs. In return, those bugs feed
The
that
deer.
cow.
That's
or
right.
the
Right,
deer.
Right.
And there's a lot of products on the market to help with that and aid in that. And again, I think that comes back to a reputable feed dealer.
Sure. Absolutely.
Because
They're paying attention. They've already done the homework on what helps the rumen and what doesn't. And they've done that work for you.
right.
And so again, you're right. The reputable guys, the
They do
reputable
that.
company
Yeah.
that has done that is the one that you should go with.
Right.
So
You know,
Yeah.
A&M
100%.
Texas A&M has a facility there in College Station, and this is going to sound horrible and gross, but it is 100% scientific studies, and it's legit. Where they have some cows, and they put
Yep.
a screw-on lid. It's got a flange,
It's like a colostomy bag in a person,
kind of.
pretty much. Yep.
Yeah, they go in and surgically insert this a screw-off lid about
Yep.
yay big.
Yep.
In the sides of the cows. It's got a flange inside the rumen and through the skin and yada yada yada, so that they can open this valve,
And inspect the rumen.
look in there, but then they can also run tests.
Sure.
They'll put feed and basically like a cheesecloth,
Right.
drop it in there, leave it in there for X amount of hours, pull it out, analyze everything,
Yep.
and go that way. Those are the kind of steps I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's the extra mile.
That's absolutely.
Now, is that, you know, is it cool to do that to a cow? Probably not.
Right.
I mean, I wouldn't want a big screw-off valve. I mean, is it hurting a cow?
No, not one bit.
That cow's fine.
Do-
And to be honest, that
doesn't-
cow probably gets treated better than any other
Yeah.
cow around here.
Yep. Doesn't change anything in that cow's life. No.
No.
Nope.
And it's
And I've seen that.
it's neat.
Yeah, I've seen it. Yep. And
It's super fascinating.
Yep. And that's the time and money and studies and, you know, everything that they do to see what the rumen does and what the feed does, and, you know, okay, that doesn't, this does, we can't do this, let's do this. They've taken the guesswork out.
Right. And that's where a probiotic comes in. A probiotic is beneficial for the gut, but not necessarily like the gut. It's not like helping the lining of the gut or, you know, anything like that. It's helping those bugs, those microbes, those bacteria, all that stuff. It's feeding those and making them healthy as can be, generating more of them.
Yep.
All of that stuff. And in return, it just makes everything better for that animal.
It's a healthier animal.
Way healthier.
100%, I agree. And that's what I'm saying. There's a lot of companies, but there's only a few that have done that research.
They've been around a
long time. And you can argue and you can jump up and down and say, no, this is the best feed. And everybody who feeds their feed is going to tell you it's the best feed.
Yeah.
And I get it. I understand that. You know, I'm not here.
And it doesn't matter high fence or low fence.
No, it doesn't matter. You can, yeah. And it doesn't matter whether you got 10 acres or 100,000 acres. The deer's a deer.
That's right.
And a feed is a feed. And take the guesswork out of it by someone who says, oh no, well, they'll eat it. Well, yeah, they'll eat it. They'll eat peanuts and
I'd eat that dirt right there if I got hungry enough.
They'll eat cookies and they'll eat, you know, whatever. If they're hungry enough, they're going to eat it.
They're going to eat it.
And it's in the, you know, you're conditioning them to come in and eat at a feeder.
Right.
That's what we do. We condition the deer to come in and eat. And they're going to eat whatever that's in that feeder, especially if it's got some, you know, something they like. And every feed is going to have, you know,
some flavor enhancers.
Some flavor enhancers that make them come eat.
A little more palatable. Yeah.
Sure. And that's why they put so much research into that little pellet. I mean, and again, just because I'm familiar with it and I ask 1,000 questions, you know, to my feed guy, that pellet actually has they did research. It has a PSI point of breaking. So the deer's going to be able to eat it. The palatability of that pellet be able to break and they'll break it.
Yeah.
They're going to break it. But how hard is it going to be for that deer to take a bite, chew it up, and swallow it and get the most benefit out of it, instead of sitting there going, okay, he's eating a jawbreaker.
Right.
And instead of sitting there trying to break this pellet, he breaks it, chews it, swallows it, and gets the next bite.
He's not burning energy to eat his food.
Get the next bite.
Yeah.
And get the next bite. They've done that research.
Wow.
So they've got a PSI.
I never even thought about that.
They've got a PSI number on that pellet.
That's cool.
That's cool. That's how much research goes into these companies. And again, just, I mean, because I've asked a question, you know, why is this? And they stay so much on top of their feed. We stay so much on top of their feed. I mean, you heard today, we filled your feeders up. We're here helping you fill. What did Madison say? That's a beautiful pellet.
Yeah.
And did you hear what she said? It doesn't fall
crumble.
apart.
Yeah.
It doesn't crumble, she said. And because she's handled 1,000 of these feed loads, she picks them up, she crushes them, sees are they breaking, are they not, are they, you know.
She even said today, she's like, well, I didn't taste one. I should have, but I didn't.
Yeah. Well, she'll taste them.
Yeah.
Almost every load, she'll taste it and go, oh, wow, that's sweet.
I thought I was the only idiot that tasted deer feed.
No, she'll taste the deer feed. But that much research goes into that pellet. When you get down to saying, okay, we have a PSI number for the breaking of that pellet. And they will, when somebody calls them and says, hey, this pellet's no good. Well, why not? Well, this and this and this. And they'll say, okay, they'll grab a sample, they'll run it back to the lab. Your load that came to you is assigned a number, and they can track it back all the way to the point A.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's an issue, you know, is it, it's not an ingredient issue.
No.
Because they have the highest standards for, and your reputable feed companies, they have a standard for the ingredients.
For their ingredients, yeah.
Yes.
They're not taking seconds.
No, they don't take seconds. They don't drop the price of their feed with secondhand grain and alfalfa and cottonseed, everything that goes into it, they don't buy seconds.
Right.
Your reputable companies buy number ones.
Right.
And yeah, it's going to be higher. And people say, well, they're more expensive. Well, what is their ingredients? Sometimes they're more expensive because they can be. And sometimes they're more expensive because they're getting the number one ingredients.
Yes.
And those big companies.
There are feeds out there that are way more expensive.
Right. Correct.
That I'm not sure that are following these protocols.
Following those protocols. And I can guarantee you that the two biggest feed companies that are out there that probably sell more protein than anybody else in the world have those protocols.
Right.
Because I've been in their plant and I've been in that room when they're crushing that pellet.
Yeah.
They're crushing that pellet. They're just and they'll have a PSI number going, oh yeah, it falls within the, oh man, something went wrong, or it didn't. It didn't. Okay, you're right. Something happened. Okay, then they're tracing back to the plant. Okay, what happened? There's accountability all the way from point A to point Z. There's accountability until that deer eats that pellet. You can't beat that.
Mm-mm.
You can't beat that. I mean, I don't care what anybody says. That's what I want.
Right.
I want those guys that are standing up going, hey, yeah, no, this is the best pellet we can put out. The best pellet that can be made, we're doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I hate to keep saying record rack, but they have another product that you and I both love. They're Buck Developer.
Absolutely.
And it's called Buck Developer. It's got nothing to do with bucks.
No.
It's
That's just the name they gave it.
It's not a buck feed.
No.
I think the name's stupid.
Right.
I'm not going to lie.
Right.
I think they should change the name to
Right.
Deer Developer.
Yeah. Deer Developer would be great. We might need to put that phone
but
call in.
it's you've seen it. You pour it out of the bag and
Sure.
it just like
Falls
out.
It's moving.
It's almost sticky and I just want to eat it.
It's a sweet feed.
Yes.
It's what it is.
And the deer stinking
Absolutely love
it.
We had some deer on a ranch, 10,000 acre ranch. It wasn't we've got a pen. It was a big ranch, and the guy called and said, hey, I've got an issue. He had some deer that were slow coming out of the rut. They were run down.
I remember you telling me about
Yeah, they were run down. They were like, and it wasn't over the whole ranch.
Yeah.
For some reason, he had some bucks. Let me put it that way. He had some bucks that they had bachelored back up, and he said, man, they just look a little poor. And I said, well, it takes a little time, and this guy's feed program was second to none. I mean, he did it right, and fed year round, never stopped. He took all his business, and did it right. So he said, what can I do? And I said, man, we're feeding protein, and we're putting out some extra cottonseed and this and that. So I said, the only other thing I would know is Buck Developer. And he's like, can we do it? So we went into a feed station and put a trough and started putting out Buck Developer. Not everybody can do that.
No.
It's expensive.
You got to have some deep pockets.
Yeah, it's expensive.
I use it as a treat.
Yeah. No, we put it out inside a pen like that. And within about, it wasn't long, and I don't remember the time frame now, but it was 3 or 4 weeks that he fed it. He committed to about a month, and in about week number 3, he's like, man, it's working. These deer put on weight with the Buck Developer, his target deer.
Yeah.
And once they got their nose in it, they were like, man, where's this good stuff?
Yeah.
Where's the good stuff? But he got the weight on them, and everything was good. And then we stopped. We were like, okay, they're where body conditions are where they need to be.
Totally not economical.
It's not economical, and it's not a year round. Okay, we're going to feed this for 12 months out of the year.
Right, but I know the guy you're talking about. His bank account's a little different.
A little bit.
Than the average guy.
And he was serious about it, and he was able to do it, and it was cool because he was able to do it, and we were like, hey, it worked.
That is neat.
And we got them right back to where they needed to be, and then we pulled it, and they were never stopped eating protein. They just needed a little extra, and it worked.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
I would have been able to do it. I've been like, no, sorry. But there was a couple of bucks that he said, I want that deer gaining weight because I don't want to lose him. Mortality in a mature deer is bad enough as it is.
Yeah.
And he was like, I just don't know that he'll make it. I want to help him all I can. And we did, and it worked.
That's too cool. You know, a lot of people ask me, and I know they ask you too. Is there a deer out there?
No, I was just looking. I thought.
Have you seen one? Madison's pointing. Oh, there's a deer walking in.
He was kind of hanging back,
A
wondering what these fools are doing.
lot of people ask me all the time, what are you feeding those deer to get them so big? And I'm like, no, it's just deer feed.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah,
good deer feed.
Yeah, but
just
it's deer feed.
And no, you're putting something special in there, or, you know. And then there's these guys that are like looking for the magic beans.
Sure.
You know, and there's people that are selling them magic beans. You go to Walmart or any sporting goods store, and there's those little bags of this BS, I call it, snake oil for deer. Man, now that deer's got me sidetracked. That's a buck too.
Is he coming on the way in? Is he committed?
No, he's gonna come down the road.
Yeah.
Makes it harder to see him on camera. So people think, oh, I want the magic bean. You know, I want what you're feeding. You can feed what I'm feeding.
Yeah.
I welcome you.
Sure.
I want you to feed what I'm feeding.
Come on.
Because it will help your deer. But they're not. It's not a magic potion.
No.
It's not the magic potion. There is no magic potion.
There is none. A lot of work.
A lot of hard
Sweat.
work. And this is a whole nother podcast. But that big fence, that big tall fence, is a big key.
Well, and we sat up last night till what 2:30 in the morning, and you know, just talking about this place. You know, the direction you're running. You know, what do you want to do? Your goals. You know, and the number one thing you got to have is goals.
Yeah.
What do I want to be? What's my end product? And we got into 5 different scenarios, and I know you probably, you know, you looked at me a couple of times like, you know, just shut up. No, I'm not going to do that. You know, because I can come off with off the wall stuff. Well, let's go do this. You know, and you're like, no, I can't. You know, and I'm like, okay, you know, but it's I say it's fun. It's fun to get to the end of that road.
Right.
When you go, okay, we're here. Now we got to maintain it. You always strive to do better, even though when you reach that point. But getting there, there's a whole lot of 130-inch deer that you go through before you get to that 180-inch deer. Mm-hmm. A whole lot of them. And I don't care how much you improve genetics and how much we need to do this and do this and do this, and you're improving the habitat, and we're habitat managers. We're habitat managers because the number one is that, you know, how many times have you heard me say the word density?
A lot.
A lot, because I'm big on how many the numbers on the ranch affect the habitat, and the habitat affects the quality of your deer because that affects what they're eating.
Right.
Yeah, you can put out the protein, but they're not 100% protein. You can't force them unless they're in a pen to eat nothing but that, because they're going to come out here and during the rut, they're going to walk from, you told me last night, man, that buck, we saw a buck come in to the house feeder, and you said, man, that deer's all over the ranch during the rut.
All over.
He might lose 50 pounds.
Easy,
maybe more. So that affects what that deer's doing. You know, yeah, you want that deer. He was I don't know, what was he, 170 some odd inch deer?
He's a good deer.
Yeah, he was a great deer. Yeah, you might not want to, no, he was a great deer.
Yeah.
Beautiful deer.
Yeah.
I mean, when he was one of those deer that just had that wow factor. He just went, oh man.
And he don't come to the house very often.
No.
That's crazy.
But he walked in and, you know, when I looked outside, I was like, oh wow. You know, those were my first words. He was a fantastic deer. Young deer, you know, middle-aged deer.
Yeah.
Let's call him a middle-aged deer.
Yeah, we argued about that a little bit last
Yeah,
night.
we did. But, you know, those are the deer you want, but you go through a whole lot of those deer that you just go, he just ain't going to do it.
Right.
Before you get to that buck.
I think that needs to be our next podcast. What we're getting on now.
Right.
And we had talked about this all last night.
Absolutely.
I think that would be a good one.
I love talking about it. I'm not an expert, and I'm not, you know, it's a whole lot of trial and error that we've had, you know, and we've had some ranches that are very successful with it, and some that are, you know, we're on the road, but it's a whole lot of blood, sweat, and tears to get to Z from A.
Whole lot.
And there's no magic wand. There's no magic
and really,
bean.
once you get to Z, Doesn't stop.
No, it doesn't stop. No, it doesn't
You
stop.
just feel good because
You've
big
got
deer.
there and you're like, man, our deer look great. And now how are we going to push them to the next level?
Right.
You know, and you don't have to be like that. You can just go out. You know, you enjoy the ranch, you enjoy the deer, but we're just weird about big deer.
True.
Well, what do you think?
I think
We'll save that
yeah,
for the
we're
next
gonna
one?
save that. Yeah, I
Okay.
think that because that's a whole.
Yeah,
I mean, we talked about it last night for 4 hours.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, guys, we appreciate you joining. We appreciate you watching. Hopefully, you got to see our little buck in the background. Take this information, do what you want to with it. We're not professionals. We're not scientists. We're just rednecks sitting out in the woods talking deer. So, take it, do what you want to with it, but
Thanks for listening.
yeah, do it at your own risk.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we appreciate you joining. Y'all have a good one. Thank you.